We have all said it. We want our kids to be lifelong learners. We tell our kids education doesn't stop as soon as you graduate high school, that you can continue to learn throughout your entire life. But do we apply that to ourselves? So today I want to talk all about mother culture. So first of all, if you're new here, hi, my name is Brittany. I am a homeschool mom of 4 kids from high school all the way down to kindergarten. We have been homeschooling for almost a decade now. And on my channel, I like to share all things that I've learned along the way and that I am still learning as we are continuing on in our homeschool journey. I love to learn. It's one of the reasons why I love homeschooling so much, is it gives not only my kids the opportunity to learn at home, but I get this opportunity to learn alongside them. There's so many things that I didn't learn growing up in school. I was in the public school system, so I feel like I had a bunch of gaps in my education and I just didn't have an interest. And now everything is just so fascinating to me. And so I love learning. But there has always been, it's been sporadic as seasons have changed and I get busy, and then I have these huge amounts of time where I am not learning anything besides what I'm learning with my kids. I have always dabbled a little bit into Charlotte Mason. I was a Charlotte Mason homeschooler. We have turned classical, but Charlotte Mason was actually a classical instructor. And so a lot of her ideas I still do like. And one of these ideas that she had was that the mother should be cultivating her own soul as well as the souls of her children, and that in order to do it well, in order to teach her children well, she needed to be cultivating her own soul, her own education, her own mind. This term, mother culture, was actually never written in any of Charlotte Mason's formal writings. I believe she wrote these monthly articles for parents and educators, and it was at one point used in one of her articles. And then when the Charlotte Mason Companion Guide was written, the author of that book started fleshing out this idea of mother culture. But it was something that Charlotte Mason was a huge proponent of the mother continuing to grow. All of that is to front load what it is that I am talking about today. So this is my plan for the school year, because I do feel like whenever I allow myself to get busy with the day-to-day, I will neglect my own education before I'll neglect my children's education or the housework or other things. And it's so important to continue to grow. So I have my mom schooling that I do. So I think that mother culture is supposed to be a little less formal than I make it, but I like to have a plan. So I have my mother culture divided into 4 different categories. And so the first one is through reading good books, good literature. The second one would be Bible reading and Bible study, not just one or the other. Habit training, and then creativity. So each of those 4 categories, I am going to choose certain things that I'm going to focus on for this year. And I have subdivisions within that. So I'm going to start with talking about the literature that I have picked for myself for this year. The first subcategory within my literature category is classic literature. So the first one that I am going to read is Jane Eyre. I have not actually read this book. I will admit I tend to shy away from classic literature because I've always believed I wasn't smart enough to read classic literature. But the thing is with the classics is being willing to take it slow. So my plan with going through my classic literature is about 5 pages a day, and I'm going to slowly read through it. How I have figured out how many books I'm going to read is I've given myself about 180 days. I will still probably work through the summer. I will also work through our winter break with my personal studies, just because I enjoy doing this. But I give myself 180 days. And so I take the books that I'm going to read, how many pages am I going to read a day, and then I divide that out. And so that gives me kind of an estimate on how many books I'm going to read. So I'm going to start with Jane Eyre. The next one is A Tale of Two Cities. I have never read this book. It was my sister's. Actually, my parents got rid of a bunch of their stuff and I found it in their storage unit. And it was hers from high school. I've never read A Tale of Two Cities, and this is on my reading list for my oldest next year. And so it feels appropriate that I should read through it this year. The next 2 are not I don't even know if you would call them classic literature, but they are books that have been on my reading list that I should read. So I kind of lump those in here as books that I should read that are fiction that I haven't read yet, even if they're not technically classics. So it is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But I'm going to start, my husband is telling me I have to start with The Hobbit. So I'm going to read The Hobbit first. And then I will come in and I will read The Fellowship of the Ring. And so I know that once I read these, I'll be like, why did I put it off for so long? But I also know that I won't naturally pick them up as one of my fun reads. So I'm putting them in this category so they get on my list. Plus, my oldest loves Lord of the Rings. And so if he's been begging me to read it, and I feel like I should honor that. Oh, hold on, coffee break. Okay, so my next subcategory is theology. I am a theology nerd. I love all things theology. How I'm going to do this differently is that I have always just read a bunch of books. And I feel like this year I have kind of started to slow down on my theology reads because a lot of times it feels like it's in one ear, out the other. So I started following this guy here on YouTube. He's the Daily Stoic. He's also an author. He's on Instagram, got all the socials, but he is pretty prominent. So he has this method if you do Charlotte Mason, you probably have heard of a commonplace book. He uses this note card system instead of a commonplace book that I actually thought was really ingenious. So I'm going to start using his method to try to just help me remember the things that I'm reading. So the books that I have chosen, I am not doing as many as I normally do because I was reading, lots and lots and lots and lots of books, just cramming all the information in. And like I said, in one ear, out the other. Let me see. I have my list here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm only reading 5 theology books this year, which is super weird for me. So the first one I have this is a recommendation from my pastor, A History of the Work of Redemption by Jonathan Edwards. And so how I will do this is I will read 5 pages out of each of my theology books and do all of the note taking and stuff like that. And I can go more in depth in that process if anybody is interested whenever I have been doing it for a little while, and I can tell you how it's going. The next one is Putting Amazing Back into Grace, Embracing the Heart of the Gospel by Michael Horton. And so this is one that's been on my shelf for a really long time. I started it, I was pregnant and got really sick, and then it just got shelved and never picked back up. And so that one needs to get read. My goal is to read through all of the books in my house before I buy any more. I also have The Potter's Freedom by James White, A Defense of the Reformation and a Rebuttal of Norman Geisler's Chosen but Free. Also been on my shelf for a while. And then this is one that my deacon actually gave me, that my pastor gave him. But I think I'm going to return it and buy my own so I can mark it up. It's Covenantal and Dispensational Theologies, 4 Views on the Continuity of Scripture. And it looks really, really good. I am Reformed Baptist and covenantal, but I'm curious. He said there's multiple layers of it, that it's like a spectrum, that you can be closer on the dispensational side or closer on the covenantal side and kind of land somewhere on the spectrum. So I'm curious to see how that goes. The next subcategory is practical. So in my practical books, I have Toy Box Leadership. This was from my pastor's wife. She actually got me this one. I serve in our children's ministry. I'm one of the teachers in our children's ministry. And so it's leadership lessons from the toys you loved as a child. And so I really want to get into that one. I have a lot of books from my pastors. This is another one that I started and I got distracted. It was a pastor recommendation, Grounded in Grace, Helping Kids Build Their Identity in Christ. This one has been really good so far. I have to restart it because it's been a minute since I started reading it. Instruments in the Redeemer's Hand, People in Need of Change, Helping People in Need of Change by Paul David Tripp. Helper by Design, God's Perfect Plan for Women in Marriage, Elise Fitzpatrick. I love Elise Fitzpatrick. I've actually read this book before, but it was when I was first saved like 8 years ago, and so it definitely needs a reread. And what else do I have in here? Piper. John Piper's Desiring God, Meditations of a Christian Hedonist. I went to my pastors, definitely do this if you've never done this. I went to my pastors a couple of years ago and I said, if you could recommend one book, just one, that all Christians should read besides the Bible, what would it be? And if you have anybody in your life that is also just really passionate about reading and growing in their faith, that is a good question for all people. Just if you could only pick one book, because it's really interesting to see the books that you would choose. And this was my lead pastor. He chose this one. I also have another John Piper, which is The Pleasures of God, Meditations on God's Delight in Being God. And I'm almost done. The Peacemaker, A Biblical Guide to Resolving Personal Conflict by Ken Sandy. I think it's Sandy. This one I heard about a long, long time ago, several years ago, from the Thankful Homemaker. And it has been on my shelf. I'm not even going to tell you how long, because I went through a buying spree and I could not keep up with the books. This is the same one also, the same situation. Lies Women Believe and the Truth That Sets Them Free by Nancy Lee DeMoss. And so those are all of my books that are personal or practical, I should say. I will do the same thing with 5 pages a day and note-taking. I don't expect to get through all of these books by the end of our school year, but I think by the end of next summer, I should be able to get through all of them. My next subcategory is something to learn. So the first thing is I am going through, there's a curriculum that I bought a couple of years ago for my high schooler when he was in 9th grade, I think, and it's Master Books Logic. I'm going to put a picture here because I can't find it. It's somewhere in my house, but I can't find it. I'm going to go through that entire book because my oldest said it was really, really good and a very good introduction to logic. And I want to start there and then maybe dive deeper into logic next year. So I'm going to start with that one. I also have The Lie by Ken Ham, which is The Lie, Evolution in Millions of Years. And then Starlight in Time, Solving the Puzzle of Distant Starlight in a Young Universe. I normally do a lot more books that are learning, but I am actually teaching a lot of my high schooler stuff. So I am going to be going through chemistry. I'm going to be going through world history. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to be learning with him in that. And so I feel like it's okay to take it a little light this year. My last category with literature is a fun read. I don't have a list for that. That is just whatever sparks my interest at the time. When I finish one, I'm going to pick up another. I'm going to constantly have a fun book going. I'm really into Regency romance and kind of like the romantasy genre. And so you can follow me on Goodreads if you want to see the books that I'm reading for fun. So next category is Bible reading and Bible study. So for Bible reading, I do this day-by-day chronological Bible. It is the CSB, which I really enjoy using the CSB translation for just reading. I find it very readable. I normally use the ESV and the NKJV for my study time, but for just reading straight through, I really enjoy the Christian Standard Bible. For Bible study, I recently heard, I don't know if it was from Charlotte Mason or if it just happens to fall within that because she's a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, this method that somebody had come up with about going in this 3-year plan. And I know it's not like some revolutionary idea, but I thought that was really smart because I normally would just pick a book of the Bible and study through that, and then I would be like, what do I do next? So I have decided to do the 3-year chronological Bible study. So I can go into that whole plan on some other video if anybody's actually interested in it. But it is just, I have a chronological Bible reading plan printed out, and I'm just going to cross it off as I go. I have commentaries, and I have a ton of resources, historical context, maps, things like that I'm going to be using as part of my Bible study. So it ends up translating out to roughly a chapter a day, sometimes less if it's a long chapter. but going slowly through the Bible and really trying to wring out as much as you can. So my third category is habit training. So for habit training, what I do with my kids is we're working on 6 habits per year. And I am doing the same thing for myself. I have the plan of getting laying down the rails for yourself from Simply Charlotte Mason for me to go through. But I am going to pick, I think, 6 habits for myself to work on throughout the year. And I have, let me go grab my planner. Okay, had to go retrieve my planner. So if you saw in one of my previous videos, my last video, I think that I uploaded, I have a flex binder that I use for my planner that I have created for myself. So one of the things that I've put in here is for my mother culture. I have to redo it for myself because I don't have enough space for all of my books. I have all of my books. I have the hobbies, the habits, and things like that I'm going to work on. So down in this bottom section, I have a space to write down the habits that I'm going to work on for the year. On the back, I have created just a list for verses and quotes for personal habit training. So as I go through the habits that I'm going to work on. As I go through the habits that I'm going to work on, I am going to find some verses or some quotes, and I'm going to put either the verse or the first couple of words of the quote. And I have a card system that I'm using that I'm going to have them separated out on. So I'll have the card number listed, the habit, the date that I've started it, and the date that I've memorized the verse or the quote that I'm wanting to kind of log in my brain. I will also be using, normally I would use books, but I have enough books already that I'm going through. So I'm going to use a lot of podcasts, a lot of sermons, and then just meditating on scripture a lot, trying to really dig into the word and what it says about whatever that specific habit is. So I don't have an actual list yet because I haven't gotten the book to go through. I do know my first one is temperance. That is an area that I struggle with, is having that self-control and being moderate in my emotions and being, kind of self-contained and not given to emotional outbursts or overindulgence in like sweets and stuff like that. That's an area that I've always struggled in. And so temperance is my first one for sure. And then I'm going to pick 5 others. And then my last category is creativity. So this is going to be the hobbies that I have in my on my list. The 2 that I am working on, I'm not sure for sure on the second one, but I am for sure on the first one. So I got a ukulele last year, and I started working on it, but like I said, I got distracted. And so my goal is to mostly master the ukulele this year. And then I'm not quite sure what the second habit or second hobby, I guess you would call it, is going to be. But that for sure is my first one. So like I said, it's a lot more structured and organized because if I just like, what do I feel like doing today? What do I feel like learning today? Which book do I feel like reading? I'm going to always choose nothing because my flesh is lazy and it's like, I don't want to actually do those things. I want to doom scroll. And so having a plan on, how many minutes am I going to practice my ukulele? How many times am I going to do this every day? It helps me to stay focused and to prioritize my own education, so that I can set that example for my children that we are lifelong learners and that we should take our education seriously, and that it's a good thing, that learning is fun and we want to continue to grow. It glorifies God whenever we, look to his creation and say, how can I learn more about him and his creation? How can I grow spiritually? How can I dig deeper and prioritize my Bible time? How can I learn creative outlets that can bless other people? Whenever we take the time to focus on those kinds of things instead of the things that are easy for us to do, that we're prone to, like doom scrolling or watching a bunch of television or things like that. I feel like it really does glorify God so much better. That is all that I have for this video. If you have any questions or if you want to see more in depth on anything that I have shown today, please leave it in the comments. I am happy to show anything, and I have a link that I am putting together for my planner if you are interested in that, so you can get the printables for the mother culture or for anything else that I have in my planner. So I will make sure to put that in the description box. And if you are interested in homemaking and homeschooling and all of those kinds of things, I would love it if you would stick around and subscribe and join my tiny little corner of YouTube. With all of that being said, I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.